In today's episode, we're thrilled to host Andy Eyherabide, the Chief AI Officer at Wizeline. Andy has a rich background that spans from co-founding a data analytics firm to leading global AI practices at companies like Global Logic and Globant. Andy has consistently been on the cutting edge of AI innovation. He's also a respected speaker and university professor, bringing both academic rigor and real business acumen to the table. At Wizeline, he is responsible for spearheading the entire AI strategy, helping clients translate their AI ambitions into tangible, impactful results. Join us as we dive deep into how to use AI for business success and what it takes to drive meaningful digital transformation. Andy, welcome to the Mentors Office podcast. A pleasure.
Alvaro, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to have here Wizeline's Chief AI Officer and to learn. For me, this is a masterclass, and I hope that everybody else at Wizeline and listening to this can also learn a lot from this great talk. And to start, Andy, I want to start by talking a little bit about your career and your motivations. Let's go back to the beginning when you were a child, and what did you were dreaming of becoming when you grew up? And did you have a career plan back then? Did you had a vision of becoming a chief AI or technology officer since then, or how was it?
It's funny. When I look back, I didn't even want it to be an engineer.
Oh, wow.
I grew up wanting to be a lawyer. One of my favorite movies growing up was JFK, the movie from Kevin Costner. And then what was the name of the other movie with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves?
Yeah.
The Lawyer of the Devil, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for my cousin Benny is also one of my longtime favorites. So for whatever reason, I just grew up watching a lot of movies about lawyers. Oh, and A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, also one of my favorites. I don't know. I just always had a thing for movies with lawyers. So I actually grew up wanting to become a lawyer. Arguing my case and presenting my case to the jury. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. Now, I must say, I do come from a family of engineers. So I guess that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, very interesting. And when did that passion or motivation to become an engineer in technology, when did it begin?
I always liked computers, right? So I grew up. So I'm Argentinian, but I grew up in the States, Iowa, of all places. So my dad was doing his PhD at Iowa State University, and we had our first computer. This was probably back in the 1987. I'm going to date myself here. 1987. So it was a Tandy 1000, which he purchased at Radio Shack. And that's how I got into computers. So I don't know. I was a kid. I was probably 6 years, and I was editing software programs. Very very rudimentary software programs, and then programming with Quick Basic. And that's how I got into computers. And a relative of mine, he was studying information systems engineer in Argentina, and that's when I first heard about the career, because it was an engineering degree, but it had a lot to do with business and processing data and extracting information, and it sounded very interesting. But that didn't happen up until I was just maybe 3-4 months of graduating from high school. So it was really towards the end.
Very interesting, Andy. And what was your father's PhD about? Computer science?
No. So both my father and my mother, they are agriculture engineers. My father specialized in genetics. So breeding, genetic improvement of different plants. Yeah. Specifically, he specialized in corn.
Very interesting. Yeah, genetics is a very interesting field. And moving forward, I also want to get to know you a little bit better, and also the audience. Could you maybe tell us one fun fact about you that maybe not even your team at Wizeline might know about?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's a fun fact, but definitely a fact. And it ties back to what we were discussing previously. I actually signed up for law school.
Oh,
Yeah, and I remember it vividly. It was December 15th of 1999, and which was my birthday. So on that same day, I signed up for both engineering and law school in Rosario, Argentina,
yep.
most famously known as the city that saw the birth of both Messi and Di Maria. So ultimately, I ended up studying engineering. It was just the trials to get in college were it was just too much for me at that age, to do both in parallel. So I had to choose, and I ended up choosing engineering. So not only I wanted to become a lawyer, but I actually went all the way to signing up for
Oh,
law school.
yeah, definitely a big, like a big pivotal point in your life, right? Like,
Oh yeah, yep.
well, really interesting story, and well, we now know what happened next. And did you imagine this or not?
To a certain extent, to a certain extent. And by the way, so kudos to my father. So, but I do not regret the decision that I made when I made it. Uh, but I can say for sure that my father played a huge role in that decision. Being a lawyer. So, like I said, I grew up in the United States watching movies about lawyers arguing their case in front of a grand jury. But being a lawyer in Argentina is not exactly the same as being a lawyer in the US. So, what I had in my mind was not necessarily what would have happened if I ended up being a lawyer in Argentina. I'm not saying that it would be better or worse, but definitely different. So I don't regret that decision at all.
Well, amazing to see what movies can do and how they can inspire people
I
in
know, right?
their
Yeah,
careers.
true.
And I want to now go to another part of this episode, and is start to talk about your expertise, that is AI strategy. And for this episode, I prepared with asking some questions to leaders in technology here in Colombia. And one of them told me about one interesting problem or dilemma that I have currently in their team, and is that this leader and in their product management team sees that product development, or that these product managers see product development as something only being done with developers, and they don't feel empowered right now to create products on themselves using AI. So how can these agile teams, which have become dependent on developers, fully adopt AI in product development and take ownership now that we have these different tools such as Cursor, Cloud Code, GitHub Copilot? What do you think?
That's a great question. And by the way, I just came up with two additional fun facts, which I'm going to save for the end of this conversation. But it got me thinking about, life decisions. You have door number one and door number two, and you go through a certain
Yeah,
door
you
and you
had
keep
a
thinking,
big fork, right?
yeah. So
Right there.
I've had a couple of those. One of them would have actually relocated me to Colombia
Oh, well.
15 years ago. Yeah. So I'll tell you more about that later. And there was another fork in the road 30 years ago. No, even before that, that would have relocated me to Mexico. So, talk about, different life decisions. Some of those decisions were not mine, by the way. No, so to your point, that's a very valid question. So I'm a huge fan of Andrew Ng. And, you know, Andrew says that AI is a new literacy. So, that learning AI, or to work with AI, not to build AI, but to work with AI, which is an important distinction. Um, it is going to be as important as learning to read and write was for society over a century ago. That's the way that I think about AI. And he also said that in today's environment, when it comes to building software, the bottleneck is no longer the developer; it is actually the product manager, people that can actually think of a product, what it should do, why it is needed, what is a value proposition, what's the what, why do we need this?
Right.
And he says that product managers are in today's world the bottleneck. Now, the good news is that technology and the ability to build has always been very siloed, right? So you needed a product manager to envision the product, a UX designer to crank the experience, a front-end developer to bring it to life, sometimes a back-end developer, and then you needed a tester to test all that out, and you needed a cloud engineer to set all that up. What we're seeing right now with the advancements of tools like you mentioned Cursor. So Cursor is the first AI native IDE, but what we're also seeing is the advancements of vibe coding tools such as V0 from Vercel, right? So a tool like V0 gives a non-technical person the ability not just to have an idea, but to also prototype that idea, to bring it to life. Now, vibe coding is not the same as professional software engineering, which is a must. When you're about to deploy something to production, making sure that something is enterprise grade, that it's scalable, that it is secure and robust. But I see the walls starting to come down. The walls between the different phases of the software lifecycle, they're starting to come down, and they're starting to come down very fast. Which is amazing because what it's doing, it's democratizing, access to these technologies and giving everybody with an idea the tools that are needed to bring those ideas to life, without a huge team, without, huge infrastructure, without spending thousands of dollars on tools. And there's a number of these tools and products that are coming out. I mentioned V0 because it's a very popular one. Definitely not the only one. I have a very good friend. So he is an engineer, but he never coded for a living. He's now building his own products using cloud code. And that's fantastic. I mean, that's amazing.
And what do you think that are those keys to unlock that part in those kind of product management teams where they are not taking like the initiative to go on their own? And
yeah, I mean, so a couple of things that I can think about. Technology can be intimidating, especially AI. Because at its core, AI is a box full of math, and sometimes it can be complicated math, and not everybody feels comfortable, around calculus. Let's call it that. But these tools, I mean, they do a pretty good job at abstracting all the complexity of AI. So that's why I talk about building with AI, not building AI. So overcoming that that intimidation is key. Having a growth mindset, understanding that hey, you don't know it all, especially in this field where everything is changing quite fast.
Yeah, really fast.
But understanding that first, you don't know it all, you don't have all the answers, probably you never will, but not allowing that to stop you. Okay, just going after it. It's never been as easy to learn how to code, to learn how to use these tools. There's so much content available, quality content, sometimes even for free, right? But I believe that what some people don't quite understand is that we're not talking about future. We're not talking about the art of the possible. We're talking about technology that already exists today, that some people are already using it. So we need to understand that the way that software is being built isn't going to change. It already changed, but we have not embraced it as much as we could. So I guess that you can say in many ways the technology today has evolved faster than our ability to adopt it. And there's no better way to learn than by doing.
Yeah, I agree. Doing is really important, and taking the time to invest, because it's definitely an investment that takes time. But definitely, yeah, I think that testing, trying it, failing, and then seeing what works, what doesn't work. Currently, I am leading a community in Colombia that is a technology, AI, product management, and innovation community called PMBers. And it's a great opportunity to learn from others what they're doing. I remember one demo that someone made a couple of months ago, where that person showed a demo on how to use Cloud Code to create an MVP. And it
Yep.
was really cool, using, for example, Gemini deep research to do a little bit of the discovery part and understanding the customer and those kind of things. And afterwards, using Cloud Code to create an MVP, for example.
Yeah. So cloud code specifically, it's an interesting one because so some folks talk about the Chat GPT moment. Like, do you recall about the first time that you saw Chat GPT in action?
Yeah, I recall it. Actually, I think that I discovered it before it was a boom, and I discovered it for coding, for GitHub Copilot, and for images. And I say,
Okay.
okay, this is really cool. And then, but I didn't like it. After a year, it exploded. So I didn't expect, that big exponential boom in
Yeah.
that into performance.
So I remember the first time that I used Chat GPT, and I remember saying to myself, like, holy cow. And after that, I had a similar moment when I saw Cloud Code for the first time. I was like,
Or
okay, like, some people has been asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? When I saw Cloud Code, I was like, okay, we're there. So yeah.
very interesting. And there's another very interesting problem or issue that another different leader had, and is related to how do you see and what are you telling clients in Wizeline about the landscape of online advertisement, SEO, in the face of new search engines based on LLMs such as ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity? How is that business model going to change?
That's an interesting one, and it's been in the media for a while. You think about Google and this very advanced technology company, which it is, but most of its revenue comes from advertising. So it's all powered by their search engine. But now all of a sudden, if you're no longer searching, but rather you're asking a very intelligent AI model, where does that leave a company like Google and their business model, which is to sell you advertising
Right.
through their web search, right? So it's quite interesting, and we're already seeing within Wizeline some inbound opportunities that are coming in through not traditional search, but via large language models.
Interesting.
Clients saying, well, you guys were actually recommended by ChatGPT or by Gemini.
And
So,
is Wizeline maybe thinking about, or already did this, about redesigning the website or something so it communicates better with agents? Or what do you think about that?
so again, the landscape is evolving quite fast, right? So, but we recently did a redesign and redeploy of our website, but we continue to partner with some organizations that are leading in this front of how do you make sure, in the same way that, you use tools to make sure that your website is SEO friendly, how can you make it LLM friendly? How can
Right.
you make sure, that a foundational model is picking you up and recommending you to interested parties? So definitely an evolving landscape. But on the other side of that is we're also working with clients to help them come up with content using AI. So we're very much focused on two different type of use cases. So on one side, we have the industry lens, right? That vertical aspect. What is the intersection of AI with media? What is the intersection of AI with financial services? But then we have another aspect, which is the horizontal cut, which is what does AI mean for customer experience? What does AI mean for marketing? So right now we're working with some of our clients, specifically in the content automation space, to help them rethink, redesign their content generation processes. And it also includes like, okay, how can you make this long form article more appealing? How can you make it SEO friendly? And we're using AI. More specifically, we're thinking of agentic process automation for these type of workflows.
Very interesting. Definitely, it's very interesting what's happening ahead. And what would you say, maybe looking ahead, I don't know, 3 or 5 years, what is one foundational change that AI will force businesses to make, and what does it mean for companies that fail to adapt or make that change?
Like there was an interesting debate in these past weeks. So the winner of the Nobel Prize, the head of Google DeepMind, he recently said that we are 5 years away from a significant breakthrough. Without getting into the specifics, but in short, it's something like if you can train a large language model, not a large language model, but if you can train a very advanced neural network with all the knowledge of humanity up until, let's say, the 1900s, and from that point on, the neural network would be able to by itself come up with, for instance, the theory of relativity, right? So that would mean that humanity was able to develop an AI that can pretty much come up with the same theories than humankind did, right? So he says that that level of sophistication is probably 5 years away. And then somebody came right after that. I don't know if it was Elon Musk or Sam Altman, and saying, no, I disagree. It's not 5 years away. It's 7 years away, right? But that's what we're discussing, right? Like, are we like 5 years or 7 years from such a huge event in mankind and AI?
That's interesting, because I think Ray Kurzweil and his projections were 2030, right?
For achieving the singularity, yes, 2030. Some people claim that if we might be already there and we just haven't noticed it yet. But anyway, so all this to say, anything can happen 5 years from now. So I'm going to shorten the time frame of my response, and I'm going to focus a bit more on today and the next couple of years. I would say that agents are pushing the value chain right now of artificial intelligence. I think that I read in a study recently that agents are currently generating about maybe like 15% of all of the value that is created by AI, and that number is likely to double in the next couple of years. More than 30% of the total value created by AI. I think that what we're going to see in the next couple of years is companies really adopting an AI first operating model, reinventing their core business workflows, and relying heavily on AI agents, autonomous agents, pretty much building a digital workforce and building processes and workflows around these agents. And recent study from MIT said that there's about a 5% of companies that are really pushing the boundaries of AI. They're all operating an AI first business model centered around agents. And what they're seeing is that they're seeing a higher shareholder return. They're seeing higher return on invested capital. They're seeing higher EBITDA. They're seeing higher valuations as companies, right? So they're already achieving escape velocity, right? And they are starting to separate more and more from the laggers. So that's what I see in the upcoming years.
Okay, to summarize, what I understand is everything, is changing so fast, and it's really hard to predict what's going to happen in 5 years. But right now, one thing that is definitely really important and really impactful are agents, right? For companies. That's where the Pareto
agents
is.
Yes, but not agents as the end goal, but agents as a medium to something different. And the companies that are getting it right are the companies that are understanding that it's not about small incremental productivity gains here and there, that the opportunity is really redesign your workflows, rethink the way that you're organized as a company. Right now companies are, most often than not, they're organized by functions, different departments, sales, marketing, and so on and so forth, right? But what I believe is that companies are going to start organizing themselves around certain processes, certain flows, phases in the customer lifecycle. So imagine you might have a team, a cross organizational team that is focused on customer onboarding, right? And I see agents playing a huge role in that sense.
Very interesting, definitely. And we talked about one thing that could be really impactful, or that key that can be really impactful in AI for companies. Now let's flip it. What's you advise really important executives and companies? What is that most important or costly mistake that companies can make right now as they prepare for this AI era, or for this era that we're already living on?
I think that a common mistake is thinking that this is about technology, like the rollout of yet another tool, and not understanding that it's a lot more than that. AI is not this magical fairy dust that you sprinkle on top of old stuff, and all of a sudden magic happens, right? So the advice that I always give is AI is not the end goal. AI is a medium. So think about what is it that you're trying to do, what problem you're trying to solve, what opportunity you're trying to capitalize on. And then we can figure out if AI is the right tool for the job, because AI is not the only tool that's out there. Although, sometimes in today's world, it feels like that, right? But then understanding that, that again, so, number one, AI is not the only answer. Make sure that there's a problem or an opportunity before applying technology. Otherwise, you've heard the phrase, when your only tool is a hammer, all your problems look like nails. So I feel that sometimes the industry, over the past couple of years, has been running around the aisles in offices, trying to find nails, to club against the wall using AI. And then the other thing that I would say is, AI is not magic. It's math and engineering, but there's a number of prerequisites that need to be in place. As an example, there is no AI without data. It just doesn't work like that. Actually, in my conception of the world, AI equals data plus algorithms, right? But there is no AI without data. So if you don't have a proper data foundation, like vetted, curated, and governed data, you're going to have a really hard time not even getting value out of AI, but being able to do AI. How do you do AI without data? Then your platform, your technical landscape. Again, AI it's not magic. There's like a number of things that need to be in place. So it's very difficult. It will be very difficult for a company to be good at rolling out agentic process automation if they don't have pre-existing AI capabilities already in place.
Yeah, that's
Agents
that's
are
a very
just like the
interesting
cherry
point.
on top.
For
Yeah.
sure. And what do you think are those like top things that can't be left out in order to scale AI and really achieve long-term value?
So number one is having a problem first approach to AI to create value. Anybody can build a POC, but to build something that actually yields business value, I would say number one, make sure that you have a problem worth solving. Number two, make sure that you have access to the data that you will need, right, to build the AI. And third comes the technological components that I feel that are more and more being commoditized. And by components, I mean platforms, tools, and algorithms like large language model, which is interesting. Somebody was saying that the cost of inference of GPT 3.5 was an orders of magnitude higher than what it is now. So the cost of inference, the cost of running these models is actually going down and will continue to go down. So that's why I always say first, the business case that you're solving for. Second, the data that you need, which is super important. If you don't augment these models, because we're all using the same models, right? Everybody's using GPT or Claude or Gemini, or Llama, Mistral if you're feeling a little bit more adventurous. So the only way to make sure that you sound like you and not like somebody else is augmenting these models with your data, right? So data is key. So business problem, data, and third, the technological components, the tools, the platform, the algorithms.
Thing, and this is going more to the side of the talent, to the person, and is, for example, in Wizeline, the idea of Wizeline is to be consultants and engineers for most of us. And how do you see AI changing how we engage with the clients, and how does an AI augmented consultant look like from your perspective in Wizeline?
That's a great question, and so I'm an engineer, but throughout my career, I've also been a consultant. And one thing that has always been challenging as a consultant is, staying one step ahead of your client. And now all of a sudden having access to these incredibly powerful models, and being able to do research, like deep research, not superficial high level research, but deep research, at like in the flick of your wrist. That's just mind blowing to me. But what I would say is that I feel that in many cases, not just at Wizeline, but in the industry as a whole, we're still not leveraging AI to its full potential. We keep doing certain things in the same way that we were doing them 5 years ago.
Right.
So I definitely feel that there's an opportunity to change the way that we at Wizeline, we build software, we test software, we deploy, and we maintain software. To change the way that we do design. So there is, we had an experience with one of our largest client in Europe. We did a hackathon for them, with them, not for them, with them. And we had 8 different teams in parallel. And the goal was to have a functioning prototype for each of these 8 teams, which, by the way, were non-technical. They were finance teams. So if we have done things in a traditional way, we would have needed about 16 UX and visual designers. But instead, we were able to have 8 functioning prototypes in 48 hours using a team of 4 and AI-powered tools. Another interesting example was that for a client in the healthcare space, we needed to automate about 180. Well, actually, we needed to deliver 180 test cases in 3 months. But instead, using AI, we were able to automate 150 of those test cases in 3 weeks with the same team, right? So what we thought would have taken us 3 months, we were able to achieve in 3 weeks. Not 100% of the work, we were able to automate 150 out of the 180, but that just speaks of the potential, right? Of the uplift that we can have. Now, I still see room for improvement. I still see that we're doing things in the same way that we were doing them 5 years ago, but we're changing that. But that, change doesn't happen by itself. So that's why we're working very closely with our learn and development team to launch different training programs. So all our employees understand that there's a new way of working, that we have new tools at our disposal, that people need to be open to changing their ways of working. And I see that. I see that people are open. They're very curious. They want to learn, and they want to evolve.
Definitely. And what do you see are, for example, those key tools and skills that people need at Wizeline in different positions, from, I don't know, from software engineer to product management? What are those top things that you would say, hey, you need this?
Yeah, so I definitely value skills over tools, because the skills are something that it's something that you gain and that you can transfer from one tool to the next, which is key in today's world, because tools are changing very rapidly, very fast. And skills are something that you can take with you, like I said, from one tool to the next. So we definitely focus on skills rather than tools.
Okay.
So I would say that there's like certain traits that I think are going to be essential moving forward. Understanding that there's some things that we did yesterday that we no longer have to do tomorrow. So being able to manage and orchestrate a digital workforce, but not necessarily write the code ourselves, but definitely review it, right? So the idea of trust but verify. So critical thinking, it's also going to be very important. Of course, prompt engineering. I'm sure that everybody has heard about prompt engineering and prompt design.
Yeah.
That's super important. But that prompt engineering to me is just the way that you communicate with these AI models. So yes, being able to interact with these models, being able to communicate with them is going to be key, and that's where prompt engineering comes into play. But I would say that critical thinking is going to be super important. Being able to decompose a bigger problem into smaller problems, having a growth mindset, like we discussed before. Insatiable curiosity, building. I think that building is the best way to learn. Those are some of the soft skills that I would focus on.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely learning and having that attitude of learning is really important. And as you say, they have a say that is that you don't learn Kung Fu just by watching 100 videos of Kung Fu. You have to do Kung Fu to really master it. And I think this applies to this. And for example, one skill that I found really helpful from a course that I took in Georgia Tech from David Joyner, that is one of the top AI educators and researchers in education, and it's how to use AI to learn faster. Because learning is important, but how can you really use AI to turbocharge the way you learn? And I think that's one amazing tool that definitely I think that can help every consultant and software engineers and product managers
and students.
Yeah.
And students. So it's I was speaking with a client last week, and we started talking about AI in education. And the reality is that, I mean, AI is evolving so fast, so quickly. Colleges are not able to catch up, right? So yes, I mean, you have some postgraduate courses here and there, but like it's not like AI is deeply weaved into most curriculas nowadays, even though everybody seems to agree that AI will be an important skill in the workforce of tomorrow. Like, I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I ask myself, what will my children study?
Right.
What jobs will still be in demand 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? And there's some interesting conversations about AI and the impact of AI in education. And I noticed, I saw recently that Anthropic recently signed a partnership with a government to upskill talent, working with their Department of Education. I don't recall which country it was. Was it Singapore? I'm gonna have to look it up, but it was something quite interesting. It was Anthropic working with the state, with the government, to deliver AI training to the population. Which, going back to the earlier point, AI is the new literacy, and learning to interact and understand AI is going to be as important as reading and writing was 100 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And I really recommend that course to you and maybe to your children. It's an amazing book, and it's, as you say, it's not, well, they give tips on how to use it, because definitely there are some tricks on how to use it, but it's on taking skills that go beyond that. And it's, for example, metacognition, learning how to learn, planning your learning. So it's amazing if you master those skills, how you can apply it with AI and to recharge them. And that's more or less
learning
this course goes. And I
learning
think
how to learn.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. I think that learning to unlearn is also as important,
right,
in today's world, because we need to learn new ways of working. You said Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah, Georgia Tech from David Joyner. Definitely, I'm gonna share it with you. It's amazing.
I have a soft spot for Georgia Tech. So I worked with a number of years with Turner, based out of Atlanta, and they have their offices in Techwood. One of the offices, the other one is CNN Center in downtown. But Techwood was right there in Midtown in Atlanta, right next to Georgia Tech campus. So just an amazing college, an amazing talent.
Yeah, I did my master's there, one of my masters. So definitely, and he was my teacher. Amazing. So yeah, definitely to the audience, recommend it. And now I know we don't have a lot of time, but this is another section of this podcast that I love, and it's about career. And Andy, could you share with us what's your biggest challenge that you have faced in your career, and how did you overcome that difficulty, and what things did you learn about it?
Great question. So in my case, I started working in data before I got out of college. So I started my career in the late 2003 working for IBM in Argentina, and I graduated towards the end of 2004. So I started working in the data field before I got out of college. And and I was doing that, and I was loving it, and I was progressing in my career. But at some point, somebody offered me a nonlinear growth path, which I took. So at that point in time, I was no longer focused solely on data and AI, but I was leading cross-functional technology teams, focusing on media entertainment. So at a given point in time, I was leading a team of about 2,000 engineers, testers, designers,
Well,
product managers, and so on. And I was offered to become CTO at different companies and different positions. But at the end of the day, you can't go against you know you can't go against yourself. And I'm an AI engineer. I'm an old data guy, and that's not just what I do. It's it's what I love. It's my passion. It's something that defines me. There's something very very calming and soothing in in data and reason and logic and math. So in my case, it was difficult for me to stay true to myself and say, yes, I do have a career path to become this, but at the end of the day, this is what I want to do. This is who I am, not what I do. This is who I am. This is what I want to do with my career. So I decided to let go of that and come back to the data and AI realm, if you will. And when I came back to data and AI, I was still getting approached and poached to take positions, different positions in different companies and different regions as CTO. So that was the hardest thing for me in my personal journey. So the sum of that and my advice is just stay true to yourself. Figure out what makes you tick. What makes you spark, what gives you joy, and follow that. And follow that, because at the end of the day, you can't go against yourself and who you are.
very interesting. And another question that I really like, and it's related to what you say, it's more about skills and your ideas more than just tools. Can you share with us your top 3 rules of success? What would you say to your children?
Now I'm curious, what would my children say that I tell them? That would be super interesting. What I try to do is, number one, be intentional, have an agenda. So I wake up early in the mornings, and I always try to figure out what I want to accomplish in that day, and go after it. So being intentional, having an agenda, because otherwise, trust me, somebody will have an agenda for you, and it's going to be 5, 6, 7 p.m. and you're still going to be at it, and feeling that you haven't accomplished anything in that day. In reality, you did. You attended a lot of meetings, you took a lot of calls, you responded a lot of emails, but you should not confuse activity with progress. Those are two separate things. Busy doesn't cut it. So being intentional. The second one, I would say, having a growth mindset. I love that one. And I think that the reason why I love it is because when at a certain point in my career, I was suffering from imposter syndrome. And just acknowledging that, hey, you don't know it all. You don't have all the answers, but it's okay as long as you trust in your ability to continue learning, right? So having a growth mindset really helped me in my career. And related to point number 2 is being a continuous learner.
Definitely.
Like I have a Coursera Plus subscription. We use DataCamp here at Wizeline. I am always learning, and there's just no other way, especially if you're working with AI, because there's something new literally every day. Literally every day. And like I said, I don't know it all. But I trust in my ability to continue to learn, to continue to grow. But you need to be willing to invest the time in your personal development and staying relevant. So
Right.
I would say those 3: being intentional, having that growth mindset, and being a lifelong learner.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, those platforms are really good. EDX, I think, is also very useful. They have a lot
Yep.
of good content from different universities, and Udacity, I think, is also a great resource, especially in AI where they focus. And I know that we don't have much time right now, but I want to make you this question. Hopefully, you can be really concise. And is, what is the most valuable career advice that you have ever received or that you have?
I'm going to say two. So, first one, I received it in my first job at IBM. And it was a project manager who said, "Hey, Andy, you've heard this phrase that the customer is always right. Well, guess what? That's not true. The customer is not always right, but they do always come first. Uh, if you're in consulting, if you're in professional services, take that to heart because that is amazing advice. It really, puts things in perspective. Second one I received not too long ago from a managing director at BCG, and he said, "Pursue value, and the rest will follow." If you add value to your customer, that renewal will come, that additional opportunities and pipeline and revenue and growth will come. But focus on delivering value, the rest will take care of itself.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Andy, for those advice. And well, we have reached the end of this episode. It was a great masterclass on AI and how to apply it to business and on career. And thank you a lot for your time, Andy.
Thank you for having me, Alberto. My pleasure.
Well, thank you. And well, thank you for our audience. See you in the next episode.